Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Have you noticed here in our digital age, we have more access to what's going on around the world than we ever did? We focus, the nightly news is about communities on the other side of the planet. And there's very little going on in our newspapers, in our TV nightly news that is about our local community. More and more you see people making calls for thinking local, but by and large, most people are kind of trained to think globally. We're supposed to think globally about our footprint on the earth and our daily decisions. And it's actually not what God set up. Here in Deuteronomy 12 through 15, they're still talking, Moses is still talking to the people about what they need to do and what they need to be thinking about and how they're going to set things up as soon as they cross the Jordan River. I feel like it's like if you have kids, or if you've ever seen this happen with kids, where the parent sort of pulls the kids aside. You're about to go into some place, and maybe it's a grocery store, maybe it's a restaurant, but you pull them aside just before you walk in the door, and you get down on their level and you point the finger in the face, and it's, here's how this is going to go down before we go in here. This is what you're going to do. This is what I expect. You're not going to get out of line, or your butt is grass. And that's what I feel like Moses is doing. He's getting down to their level. He's pointing in their face. We're going to go over here. We're going to cross this river. And when we get there, you're not going to embarrass me. You are going to do everything that God has said we're going to do, or else. And so he's talking about when they go over and they're destroying, they're wiping out these people. We're going to destroy all of the places where they serve their gods. We're going to burn their Asherim and their engravings, and there will be no remembrance of these gods on the planet. You will not act like these people. You are not going to make altars everywhere. You're going to put God's altar in one place, and this is important. He is going to decide where the tabernacle exists within all of these new allocations of land. So within one or two tribes, then, he's going to put the tabernacle. And you are going to travel to there to do any of the worshipful sacrifices that you have been told about all throughout these conversations. The sacrifices that you have daily, the sacrifices that you have for contracts and when you want to celebrate or be thankful, or the feast days, you're going to go there, you're going to travel. And so there's new rules about when you can eat meat, because there is an allowance that people before, if they killed an animal, they had to kill it as a sacrifice. It had to be reverently. So I think it's safe to say that now that they're being allowed to slaughter an animal within their own gates, and so that they don't have to travel to eat every single day, there's an awareness that might be a hardship. And so now they're allowed to slaughter an animal at home, but they have to follow the same reverent procedures. And so they've already learned that this is a sacrifice, that this is sacred, that this animal's life is sacred, and it is to be carried out. It's just something that we've lost, even though we're now eating meat without going to a temple. We have become so far separated from this idea that there is no reverence in a CAFO and in slaughterhouses these days. Lots of things about don't copy the people where you're going. Watch out for false prophets. Don't follow them. Don't serve other gods. Things that you shouldn't do. Don't cut or shave yourselves for the dead. You can eat any animal. Here is where we talk about any animal that divides the hoof and chews the cud is unclean for you. So animals and fish and birds that are on the menu and off the menu, insects, we go through all of that because we're still talking about the fact that life is sacred and there are things that as God, I am telling you for your best interest, so don't do these. And there are many people who have picked this apart and tried to understand why pigs were unclean and why they aren't. I think suffice to say, at this point in time, I think we can say that this is what God was asking of these people, and there was a reason. I think I shared about my parents' philosophy of raising me, and that's what that respect for rules gave me, is when I didn't understand the why, and I always wanted to know why, I probably still asked, but if I didn't understand, and my parent, who never said no and never tried to control me just for the power expression, if they said no, I trusted that it was because it was for my best. And again, I think we have to do that with the food, what they could and couldn't eat here with meat. But we've already got through this passage an idea that we're going to continue to go to one place. We're not going to set up altars everywhere like the people that we're dispossessing. We will have one altar. It will still be in the temple, in the tabernacle, in the tent of meeting. So there is always going to be a central place within Canaan, within where the Israelites are settled. And you're going to still need to travel there all the time for your sacrifices. But we've got a few new things happening, and one of the things that stood out here to me is that at the end of every third year, it says, bring out all the tithe of your produce that year and deposit it locally. Deposit it in your town. And that is different because so far we've seen that the sacrifices that were set up in the temple were meant to be provisions for the Levites who lived around the temple, and now that we're settling in land, the Levites are dispersed throughout all of Israel in all the different land allotments. They're amongst the people so that they can keep that touch point with what God is asking of the people and reminding them of their commitments and the covenants and the commandments. But nonetheless, these sacrifices are still meant to feed the Levites. Some of them were meant to feed the people altogether. They're meant to keep the relationship clean for all. It is the tantamount to the idea of thinking globally. Now, they were never asked to worry about anything beyond their borders. They were supposed to, so their community is big and it entails many different land spaces. So I think you could think about this as like the United States for us. It is important to think about your culture in general and take care of everybody in the culture that's appropriate. But every third year, you are to take the things that you would often go and contribute to the culture as a whole, and you are to turn it in and put it into your community. After this section, God talks about there will be no poor among you. And there's a lot of discrepancy here, and people struggle with understanding, because not only does he say there won't be any poor amongst you, but he also says the poor will always be with you. But what he's setting up in these ideas is that in your communities, there never needs to be somebody who is poor. There will always be people who have different resource allocations, and at some point you're going to have less and somebody else may have more. This isn't an idea that we are going to, that wealth redistribution is a good idea, but it is a pure look at every third year we're going to turn and we're going to invest in the people that live right around us. We're going to make sure that the widow next door is taken care of. We're going to make sure that the person who doesn't have resources has a leg up, has a way to get their feet under them. And this swings. There are times in your life when you have more and times that you have less, and times that somebody giving you a hand up might be really helpful, and times that you would turn around and give a hand up to another. It's much how churches once operated here in the United States before we put more and more into our tax base to have entities take care of this. This was never the design. We were intended to turn and face and look locally. What would this look like if we were still operating here? I think about towns that are boarded up because people focus on global companies. They go to big chains. They don't invest their money and their time into their local communities. They don't support their local farmer. Instead, they go to the grocery store, which is at the very least, it's a regional entity, and it is pulling from regional and national entities to put things on the shelf. If we turned and supported our local farmer instead, and some of us are doing this every day. Some of us are being more conscious as we go, and I think that this is necessary, and it is biblical. If we were to turn those resources on a regular basis, and instead of investing globally, instead of being distracted, we can't concern ourselves, as tempting as it is, we cannot concern ourselves with the wide world and everybody who is suffering. We have to take that, being aware of it, talking about it, keeping it in consciousness is fair, but we have to take that energy, the emotional energy, the financial energy, all of the resources need to turn and be put to fix the issue that we see globally in our local area first. That's the only way anything ever gets resolved. You have to go neighbor to neighbor. You have to go right into your own town hall. Because if you see something globally, like racism or iniquity of some sort, if you turn and look right around you and see how you can affect change, ensure that these things aren't happening right under your very nose, that's real change. We don't have enough oomph. We don't have enough resources generally, unless you're a billionaire, to affect change on a global scale, trying to start there and make an impact. We make a huge impact if we address the issues that we see, the wrongs that we see in a global space. If we all turn and address it locally, then we make real change. And the idea would be that every community turning and doing that would solve the problems across the world. And there you go. I have my beauty pageant speech of how to solve world peace. But it's right here. It's all right here, written in black and white. And there are instances in nature that we see where plants are focused locally. Obviously, they can't get up and move around. And so there are models. I want to talk about that this Sunday a little more in depth. But plants are allocating resources. They're focused on their local communities, and that's how they survive. Nature will mirror what is written here in the Word, and I think we would do best for our mental health and our community health to do the same. I pray that God is blessing you today and that He brings you back to study with me again on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. and I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.